know what ended up happening to these college kids, or where it happened, where the boat is, or any information.
They all would be prominent citizens and have been very successful with their lives by now if they'd not gotten on this sailboat.
This is how small the actual case file actually is. Other than that, there's not much to go on.
They were going to go down, take this sailboat out, and come back. And that was it. It was like they just vanished.
Well, it took some digging, but this is where the mystery began all those years ago, the Breakwater Marina in Tacoma. Although back then it was called Mogene's Public Dock. 7 college students in town for a conference came down here to go for a short evening boat ride, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Some reports had them possibly heading up around Vashon Island, others up towards Seattle, neither of which is possible in that amount of time. So where did they go?
You know, a 22-foot sailboat with 7 people in it at night, probably just running on an engine and no sail.
Yeah, you'd use the motor. Absolutely would.
My assumption is that we were going to be sailing. It wasn't like they were going to be irresponsible. So right away, that didn't quite fit. You know, of course, one of those big questions when you're talking about college kids is, were they drinking? And no, they were not. They were not drinking. And, you know, I would stand by that till my dying breath.
My name is Gary Libby. I was fraternity brothers with Jim Dickinson and Brian Williams, who were lost at sea in 1971. Jim Dickinson was from Pullman. His dad was a professor at WSU. We were in the same pledge class. That's how I met him. Smart guy, quiet, but real smart, real sharp, and could always find an answer to something. And Brian Williams, the older guy, he was a really gentle giant. He's a big guy, 6'4" maybe, or bigger. I knew them all 5 on this page. Brian Wilson, Robert Sherwood, Gary Oman. These 2 young men were in my same fraternity, whereas these other 3 I just knew from being a part of the Intercollegiate Nights program. This just talks about the 5 from WSU, but there were 2 more. There were 7 altogether.
Kind of interesting that after 50-some years that somebody had sparked an interest in something that has bothered my parents and kids, the brothers and sisters of my brother, or half-brother, if you will, for over 50 years now. My name is Wes Sodorf. My half-brother is Dennis Newton. My brother was a bit of a brainiac. In today's terms, we would probably discuss him as a nerd, his ability to learn, and had that photographic memory that he could look at something and it was history. He had it memorized. It's almost not fair to be that smart. To lose him when he's 19 years old and he was just getting started in life. Been nice to see him become a doc somewhere, and get through medical school, which I'm sure he would have done, and take the world by the tail. Time's a healer. Been healed a lot. But you still remember your brother.
I can picture her just as clear as day. Really a nice gal. Very outgoing. You know, I think most of us as duchesses were outgoing people, liked people. I remember talking to her, and it just broke my heart because she was a lovely, lovely lady. My name is Melanie Haycock. I was supposed to be on that boat. There I am, Intercollegiate Knights Duchess, Melanie Jones, Gamma Phi Beta. I was really proud of being the IK Duchess because I really enjoyed those guys and I enjoyed what we did as a service organization on campus. I was the only female for our group, and it was a thing that I tried out for, and I was chosen. It was big time for all of us. I knew the ones from WSU, but a lot of new faces. Brian was actually looking for me, and I actually hid behind the door, and they said they hadn't seen me because I knew that I didn't want to go. I had long hair at the time, and the next morning I was going to have to be up early, and at that time that meant I had to take a shower, wash my hair, and then put it in hot rollers. She had short, curly blonde hair, and so I thought, well, she'll be able to do this and be ready in the morning. All that takes time, so I thought, I just don't have time to drive to Tacoma with these guys, go out on a boat, and you just always know that those things are gonna take longer than what they think it's gonna take. Oh, we'll be back and, you know, blah, blah. But it did take a lot longer, as in never.
The next day, we got calls from people that said, hey, the guys went out sailing last night and never came back.
Well, the next morning, then the alarm was sounded because, you know, none of them were back, and they had responsibilities too. And they weren't the kind of guys that would shirk their responsibilities. You know, it was not like they overslept or something.
The Coast Guard was out, said it was one of the biggest searches in history at that point. Several of our fraternity members went over to Tacoma and helped search the beaches. But, you know, day after day after day after day, nothing came back.
7 kids, a boat, no oil slick, no mask, no debris, no coolers, none of anything that they took on that trip with them ever appeared. And to this day, it has not appeared.
Information and images for this story have been hard to come by. After 50 years, some records just no longer exist. The Coast Guard search video you saw came from here in the King 5 vault, old film that we had to send out to be digitized. We started off with just one news article, and over the course of several weeks, gathered more than 24 publications. Eventually, we tracked down a couple of old friends and a relative on the east side of the state, all in their late 70s. And with the help of the National Archives here in Seattle, even some old Coast Guard documents, not even the Tacoma Police Department has seen. These logs from April of 1971 are from the cutter Point Glass, one of 5 cutters involved in the search effort. They reference searching beaches and the water for debris from Point Richmond to Gig Harbor, south to Case Inlet, Totten Inlet, with a couple of days spent in Colvos Passage on the west side of Vashon Island. Finally, a notation on Tuesday, April 20th, about receiving word at 6 p.m. the search for the sailboat had been canceled. We know the Coast Guard looked into commercial marine traffic, cargo ships, for a possible collision. Historical records from the Port of Tacoma show no traffic at that hour. Coast Guard documents we just received from the National Archives in Washington, D.C. show status reports of the search effort, but don't shed much light on the investigation, noting no debris or wreckage has been recovered connected to the boat, and further search would not be productive. And in the end, the Coast Guard concluded the sailboat had, quote, gone down without leaving a trace. And then nothing for nearly 9 years.
Well, as we were making our set, we dropped the net off in about 15 fathoms of water in a normal spot that was right almost at the entrance to West Pass. And we proceeded to make a tow probably directly north. We went up to probably maybe 4 or 5 miles up the way, and we got to where we picked up the net.
Same as any other day until it wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah, we've never caught anything like that. You know, we've caught a lot of stuff there. We've caught parts of docks and all kinds of rubbish and garbage, tires and things like that, but never a boat, not that type of boat. I remember it when it happened, clear as day. As we were picking up the net, we were really surprised to see a sailboat come up into the bridles before the net came to the surface. As it came up, it was probably only about 30 seconds at the most where we viewed it, and then as it became less buoyant, it slipped off, stern going down first, bow raising in the air, and that's what we saw. I guess when the article came out in the newspaper, then we knew then, they said that we had caught a boat that could possibly be the one that the people were missing on. I think it would be real hard to find it.
It'd be awesome to have a closure, but I think we know what happened, and well, it's really speculation as to what they did because nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. I think the boat got hit by something to sink it.
Do you ever think that this case will be solved?
I don't. I really don't. I don't know how it could be at this point. I think the evidence is long gone, and I think that the chapter will remain open forever.
This is the original report and what we have to work with. I describe it as like taking a sticker off, an old sticker. You have to have a starting point. You start peeling here. If you grab the right point, you're gonna rip the entire thing off. If you grab the wrong spot, you're gonna have to keep scraping and scraping as long as you're working. Hopefully you're gonna find something out. Unfortunately with this one, there is such limited information and a starting point where to start peeling. I don't think we'll get there.
It would be nice to get some closure on this, but I mean, after all these years, it only takes one person to watch this who may have that technology or may have some knowledge of something that they saw 50 some years ago, and it sparks that little deal. And maybe we all could be fortunate enough to find out what really did happen.